Hello, everyone from the Monee Alliance of Churches. My name is Joe DeCenzo, and I am the lead pastor at Second Place Church. And I am excited because today we are having our first conversation in something we call Better Together, where we really believe that there is an opportunity for us to create a better future when it comes to racial reconciliation and healing. And so I'm joined today by two very special guests that are part of our community, and we're excited to hear from them today. And I think that if you choose to listen over the next few minutes, you're going to get to hear some very unique perspectives on what they have experienced in our community and through their life, as well as maybe some action steps that we can take together to see that better future happen. So first up, Pastor Hunt, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Reverend Dr. James E. Hunt. I always like to use the initial because my dad was James Hunt, so I'm kind of a junior in a way. But I'm the pastor of New Hope Christian Community Church in Monee. We have been a church for 13 years, actually going into the 14th year, and we've actually been located in Monee on 4700 West Court Street for 10 years. Yes, 10 years. And so it's been a really great experience for us. And so that's a little bit about me. I guess I would say I do have a varied background. I'm a retired military, retired from the Navy, retired from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. So don't ask me how old I am, but I'm old enough to know better. Again, a resident of Crete for 26 years. And so I know this area very well. As a matter of fact, I'm probably more of a resident of Monee than I am of Crete because I spend most of my time in Monee. So I love Monee, and I'm glad to be here on this call with everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, thank you. Michael Wilson. I'm also affiliated with New Hope Christian Community Church. Dr. Reverend Hunt. I'm a deacon at his church. I have the honor of serving and the privilege of working with him. I'm also a village trustee, newly elected for the village of Monee. My professional life and background in law enforcement, also United States Marine Corps veteran. So I have a family. My wife, who keeps up with me. I stay pretty busy, but we have our lovely children. Our oldest is 27, and our youngest is 11. So we're well-rounded, this family.
Love it. Well, it's great to have both of you on today. We're going to start with Pastor Hunt and just have him just kind of talk about his experience and kind of go from there. And so, Pastor, you are up.
Thank you, Pastor Joe. I think it's important to begin at the beginning. Actually, I was born in Chicago in the Inglewood section of the city, and we moved from Inglewood to Markham, the suburb of Markham, when I was about 4 years old. So I've grown up in the south suburbs before I went and joined the military, had some schooling and done those things. And so those things, the experience I've had in the south suburbs has really colored my experience. And that experience really was one of I'll just say this. When I went to first grade, I was actually bused to a school from Markham to Harvey for integration purposes, and it was a white school, and we came from mostly a all black subdivision, and so that was my first experience in an integrated setting. And it was really eye-opening. It kind of colored me because, as a kid, you really, kids are kids. And so some of my best friends, I got to know folks, and really we didn't make there wasn't really a difference except that we got on the bus and we went back home. And that was really my experience for those first two grades. But in the third grade, I had a chance to go to, they built a school in our community. And so that was an all black school. But in high school, went to school, integrated, again, bus to the school. So I've had a varied experience with uh, integration, especially in the military. In the military, you're really have to work as a unit, as a team. So all those things have colored my experience growing up, and I'm one to believe that we all are created equal, and that there should be no difference between color, whether you're white, black, brown, or whatever it is. So that's really my stance, and my experience here in Monee really has been kind of, in the beginning it was a little bit difficult, and Mike is aware of this, Deacon Mike is aware of this, and Pastor Joe, you are too, that when we first moved to Monee, we were met with some resistance. And sometimes when you make a move, there's certain rules and laws and policies. But when we moved into Monee, it was not friendly. We moved into our church, into that to the edifice at 4700 West Court Street, really, first of all, to rent it. And when we came in, we were met by inspectors from the fire department as well as the village. And it was unexpected. We weren't looking for that. The church that was there before had moved out the day before, and we didn't anticipate any problems, any issues. But they told us that they inspected us. They told us the building was uninhabitable, even as that one church had just left, and they were never the subject of any of those violations. And in the midst of that inspection, one of the inspectors said, "You're not from around here," which kind of, I was just taken aback. It was obvious that it wasn't really about whether we were in violation of any of the tenants. It was that we really didn't have any business being there. And that hurt my feelings. I was really surprised by it, even though I've had some experiences with prejudice and racial discrimination, but really wasn't expecting it. And so it was a fight for probably the better part of a year to occupy the building, occupy the church. And so even with that, I believe that God called us to that church and to that place, and to Monee. And my thought is, and my orientation is that if you're going to truly love your brother, you got to love your brother even with their faults and all those things. And so we came in, and what we wanted to do, our biggest goal was to be a good neighbor, be part of the community. And that was what we tried to do. We started a mentoring program at the Monee Education Center and at the Monee Elementary School. I met with a lot of the leaders and was determined that we become an integral part of the community. So much so that if we ever left, that folks would say, "Boy, we missed New Hope. They were really good neighbors. They really impacted the community." And so after those first couple of years, after that first year, things really, I can't say that things were not, were pretty good, I would say. We began to do some things, and our experience was generally good. And I feel like we are seen as community members, we are seen as good neighbors, and we are seen as trying to bring the community up and to have an impact on the community from a spiritual basis.
Thank you, Pastor Hunt. Mike, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I guess just to give you a little bit of background, I'm biracial. I'm black and Hispanic. I'm the oldest of two boys, raised by single parent mother. Hispanic mother. Um, Growing up on the southwest side of Chicago in Bridgeport, Mayor Daley's neighborhood, that was a challenge in itself. Taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about family because that's who I could really rely on at that time. And we were a close knit family. We all lived pretty much within a square mile of each other. And I knew growing up that family support, because strangers, friends weren't always as forgiving or loving as family would be. So growing up, it was a challenge. Every once in a while, I'd be reminded of who I was. At an early age, I was always asked the question was, "What are you?" And my response was an American. And they'd say, "Oh, I know that. I know you're an American." I said, "Well, what else do you need to know?" I just got so tired and fed up of that question. So on the school ground, we'd be playing baseball or softball, and the question would come up, and I was like, "Oh, here we go again." This infamous question of "What are you?" So my response always was, "I'm an American," and I would never indulge them in giving them a race or I'd let them fill in the blank. Accept me for who I am, whatever you think I am. Half the time, some of them would think I was Sicilian or Italian. Some of them would think I was Hispanic only, or some of them would think I was just black. But that was fine as long as they understood they had their own understanding of me, and they would have to judge me on my merit and what I presented to them instead of giving or branding myself a label. And so at a young age, it was always, it was always in the back of my mind. Anytime I went somewhere that potentially something could be happen, or that's why I always made sure I knew where I was very conscious of where I went and what family member was, it, excuse me, in that area. So then, if need be, I could have a family member assist or help out. But we fast forward to the Marine Corps. Uh, very, uh, very enlightening, and you meet people from all different walks that we're all the same, and all of us, we want the same things, and but for these walls that we put up, that we would never know this, if we just for for whatever reason, because they didn't look like us, they didn't sound like us, they didn't make an effort to learn our language, or we didn't make an effort to learn their language. Now there's these barriers, these walls, and that we'll never get to know this person just because we've labeled them or put these walls up. And I just always found people just exciting, just different cultures to experience. Growing up on the southwest side, being close to Chinatown, um, I had a lot of Chinese friends, and they're rich in culture. And I've always admired that, that they'd have, 4 or 5 different generations in one house, and they would put their money together and they would establish housing for each and every one of them. And they would babysit, watch their kids, and work at the same family restaurant without bickering and complaining and murmuring. And it was just awesome to see that, and made me want to strive for that and want that also for me and my life, my family. Um, so my journey after the Marine Corps was to provide housing. So now I'm looking around. I'm like, well, Calumet City um, was my first stop, and then Calumet City. After Calumet City, that's when I moved to Monee. My wife is from Inglewood also, as pastor, and her transition was a little bit different for her because um, it didn't. We're talking about 2003, and the complexion of the community is not what it is now. And I was a little more familiar with integration or being. She went from all black to mixed, somewhat mixed. I went from pretty much all white to mixed. And that was my vow that I would never live anywhere that was all one race or predominantly one race. That I wanted my children to be cultured. I wanted my children to experience the opposite of segregation, the opposite of having to be um, bus students in because you didn't have that in your own neighborhood and area. We went through that too, and my grammar school was at the end of the block, and then about fifth, sixth grade, we had the bus system, which was integrating those from the Wentworth Garden area and across I-94. But we found there was a lot of resistance. I remember parents protesting the buses when they came, uh, when they first started the bus program. But then, you see adults doing this as a child, and you say, "Wow, what's going on here?" And then you start to understand some things that talking to a lot of kids during that time. Why are you prejudiced? Why do you feel this certain way? And a lot of times the response was, my grandfather told me that they're bad people. I said, you know, there's good and bad, and white and black and Hispanic. And I would bring out, okay, well, this person, but they're not black, but now you're saying that they're bad because of their skin color, and you don't even know them. So, but this person who happens to be white and is not such a good person. So that theory is debunked by your own statement. But that's what drew me out to Monee was I seen the potential, I seen the diversity, I seen the community aspect oriented. It wasn't there in 2003, but I felt it, and starting getting back, into the church. I started branching out first. I went back to the city. I grew up in New Life Christian Community Church, and so I went back. They had a couple of branches on Oak Forest, Park Forest, and within the surrounding areas, within the city also, but it just wasn't the right fit. Lo and behold, I get my brother-in-law. I said, "There's this church at the end of my subdivision." I said, "I want to go check it out." He said, "All right, brother-in-law, I'll go with you." So I said, "All right, it's a date." We went, and I just remember going. I kept hearing this voice saying, "You are home. You're home," and that was confirmation for me, knowing that I was where I was supposed to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that experience and just such a I guess just a swing in just how it all kind of your story played out, Mike. So good. We want to turn our thoughts to and the question to kind of now that we understand a little bit about your experience. What would you say are some things that we can do right now to help in this area of racial reconciliation? And I love, Mike, what you said. Maybe this is part of it. Making an effort to learn. When we stop doing that is probably not the best. Or when we do that is when it's amazing. We can start to really understand. But I'd love to just hear, Pastor, from you. What are some steps that we can take right now?
Well, thanks for asking, Pastor Joe. One of the things, just listening to Mike, it was I was with him during the whole story, and it's so fascinating that the world is made up of different peoples and different cultures, and if we would take a step back and would consider each one as a special representative, as a special with a special gift to give us, that we can learn from each other and we can listen, we can observe. I think that would kind of broaden our horizons and help us to understand each other a little bit better. Because sometimes, as Mike was saying, we all really want the same thing. We all want to be able to live a good life. We all want to see our children raised and have the best experiences. And I think it's important that we, first of all, that we learn how to reserve judgment, and we give each other the benefit of the doubt, that we would look upon each other in such a way is that, we value one another and we value what you have to offer.
Mike, what would you say in response to what we can do right now?
Well, it comes down to, I think, the four-letter word, love. Book of Matthew and 22, verse 36 to 34. When Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment of all? What's the greatest law? It's this, to love your Lord God with all your heart, soul, and mind,
Mm-hmm.
first of all. And the second of all is to love your neighbors as yourself. Love your neighbors as yourself. Wow. As yourself, not as your neighbor, not as a human being, but as yourself. That's, having children is probably the most selfless act that we can have. In order to be a good parent, in order to to provide our children with that potential for them to thrive and to be the best version of them, also means to deny yourself. That means financially, that means with your time, your money, and your soul. So love, I think, you just look at what the turmoil that's going on in the world. You talk about nations, you talk about inner turmoil, you talk about wars, you talk about discrimination, or just anything that's the opposite of love. So we have to look at the opposite of what's going on, hate, which is love. We're designed to love one another. God's love covers a multitude of sins. It gets past us. When we put ourselves in the way, we put limitations and restraints and conforms on ourselves, because we're physical. We're only going to be able to do so much, but through Christ, all things are possible. And when we allow his love to intercede and to work within us, I think that's where it's at. It comes down to that four-letter word, love.
Also it's about compassion. And I think what I was trying to say when I was talking about looking upon each other, not judging, there's a passage in Ezekiel that says, I sat where they sit. In other words, we ought to be able to put ourselves in the place of others, and consider that they're flesh and blood. They have experience. They love. They hate, and they have all sorts of things that are wrong or right. And to be able to sit and understand where you come from, and especially in terms of what's going on in society now, that we look at each other from try to see to delve into each other's experience or background a bit. Not so much that you read, but sometimes you just go and in love you approach somebody, even if you start with one person. That's enough that you begin to understand someone different from yourself, or someone that appears to be different, and try to establish some relationship, try to establish some understanding. And really, once you do that, you can break down those invisible walls, those barriers that are around us, and you begin to sit where they sit, and you understand that they love like you love, that they want the same things, that they aspire to live in wonderful communities. And so once we begin to do that, again, like what Mike said, when we begin to combine that with love and compassion, that's the answer.
Empathy, as Pastor was saying, to you know to to love those who hate you.
Mhm.
I had to pray as a teenager. I had so much fire in my heart for certain individuals in a certain building in
Mhm.
Bridgeport that I wish at one point it would just burn down.
Mhm.
That God had to work within my own heart to say, you know what, pray for your enemies.
Mhm.
And that took a lot, because here one moment I wanted fire and brimstone to be brought down upon them, and the Lord softened my heart and said, no, pray for them. Who more needs the Lord than
Yeah,
them? and
yeah.
and, and who more, what needs an example of that, not just to be told that, but an example of that.
Mhm.
So it starts with us, and that empathy that a lot of, even you find in society, that if you don't believe their way, it's their way or the highway. and there is no room for love. It's just either you're going to conform to my will or you're going to be on the outside looking in. That's not love. But the empathy to see yourself in that person's shoes, to understand that you have a family member, you yourself, or that potentially could be you. And with the job that I do in law enforcement, that's how I handle the situations that's my grandmother, my aunt, my cousin, my niece, my nephew. But that's why it's so important that the community that you serve also you reflect that. It has to be diverse because found it's easier if you cannot empathize or relate or humanize that person. It's easier to mistreat them, and that is something that whether it's spoken or unspoken, it exists. And whether they know why they do what they do, sometimes is 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 not known to them. But you can see it. You can see if being a supervisor, I'm able to debrief certain calls or debrief events that happen, especially catastrophic or major events, or just turn it into teachable moments and life experiences, and say, okay, I get it. You followed the letter of the law. You got it. You nailed it. But what if that was your grandmother? What if that was your sister? What was that? What if that was your brother? Would you have done something different? And a lot of times that drives that home and it brings that perspective to like say, oh, it's not just about doing the job. It's not just about being right or what what is right? You know, what is just? What is the ultimate objective here? But making a difference or being involved in someone's life, that takes time, that takes effort, that takes empathy, that takes an extra step. And some people will say, well, I don't get paid to do that. Well, I'm not a social worker. Well, I'm sorry, you are. You're a problem solver. So if that means that you have to put on your little mediation hat, or if you have to put on your counseling hat, then so be it. But a lot of times, the best investment we can ever make is in a human being, in a life. So if that means spending an extra 10, 15 minutes, if that means stopping to say hi to someone who looks like they just had the worst day, then so be it. But that takes us getting out of our comfort zone. We're creatures of habit. We all are. And I got my little routine that I do. And if
Well, guys, one of the things that came to mind that as you guys were both talking, so many good things and so many good ideas, is that what you're describing is a lot of work. These ideas of treating someone else as if they're your own relative, investing in someone, establishing a relationship, even learning to value each other, like softening our heart. These are difficult things to this is work, is what I'm saying. It isn't something, we're so busy as people. We have our own agendas of what we're trying to get done in a day, and then we hop on social media at the end of the day, and then we want to maybe just share our opinion. And the bottom line is what you guys are saying is it's more about that empathetic perspective, trying to understand the other person. And that takes time, and that takes work, and it takes listening. And that's kind of what we're committed to do as a Monee Alliance of Churches, is to create channels to listen to each other and to hear the experiences of our community members on this topic. And so, gentlemen, I really appreciate your perspectives and what you've shared today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Pastor Joe, for having us and for facilitating this discussion. And I look forward to any further discussion that we can have on this. I'll just say this, just to wrap it up, just for me, is that it's important that we make the first step and to reach across the aisle, so to speak. Whether you're in the church or whether you're in the neighborhood, reach across the street, reach across the aisle, whatever you can, and begin just one by one, just to break down those walls and begin to understand and listen to each other a little bit better.
Absolutely. And Mike, thanks so much for being on today.
Oh, Pastor Joe, it's been a pleasure and an honor, honestly. It's funny because as a child, I was quiet. I was that kid who was in the room, and you wouldn't know I was there. I'm the older brother, but my younger brother, oh, you're Shane's brother, and I was the older brother. So, but it's wonderful how the Lord works because now that I'm older, it seems like He's using my voice.
Mhm.
Sometimes I catch myself as like, would he just be quiet? But when the Lord puts something on your heart, you have to speak it. And
Absolutely.
I just encourage everyone to get outside their comfort zone. Honestly, we get in our little niche, we get in our little nook, and we like it because it's nice and cozy, and it's sometimes it's not even challenging. We can do it on cruise control.
Mhm.
um, Step outside your own self and let God take over. Let God's will be done in your life, and pray that and ask for those opportunities for you to make a difference. That start looking for those opportunities. He gives it to us on a daily basis. It's whether you're looking for them or you're ready for them. That's key. We have to be ask and you shall receive. So you're going to move outside that comfort zone. You're going to ask the Lord to provide opportunities. So you need to be looking for those opportunities to share His love, God's love. And when it comes down to it, that's what we're here to do. Is to spread the good news that God has sent His Son. For all of us, not just one of us, not just for some of us, but all of us, and to be as ambassadors of Christ, to understand what that means. An ambassador of Christ, to be a Christian, a follower of Christ, to be Christ-like, and not just in name. Because a lot of times, when we talk to people, oh, I'm a Christian. Okay, so what church do you attend? Well, when I was a kid, I used to attend, well, okay, what about now? How are you spiritually getting fed now? And well, if you're not, hey, I have a church for you, or be able to send them in a direction to where they can be edified and get involved in the community, and you'll see your life grow, and it's wonderful to see the Lord work in your own life because it's Him because it's not you. You know, me being I didn't want anything to do with military when I was a kid. I had a best friend who said he was all about joining the Marine Corps, and that all of a sudden became a good idea around my after my junior year, and I was like, wow, okay, not I don't want to go to college. I don't really have the money for it, and I really don't want to go, but you know what? Marine Corps sounded really good, and I had a cousin who was in the Marine Corps, and one in the Navy, one in the Army, and one in the Marine Corps. But the one in the Marine Corps, my cousin Johnny, stood out because he was disciplined. He came back in shape, and he took control of his life, and he was doing and he was heavily involved in the church, and he was doing what he was supposed to be doing. But a a male role model in my life because my father wasn't there, and so be looking. We have to model that. To saying all that to say that we're ambassadors of Christ, and to understand that duty, that responsibility, that obligation, it's real. It's real. And until we get to that point in our lives, we can put it in cruise control and be very comfortable in our lives and think all these wonderful, great things that we're doing with our lives and how great we're helping society. But are we living to our full potential? Are we the best version that the version that God designed us to be? Are we that? But
Mhm.
we're constant work in progress. But I just marvel at when I let God take over and I stop saying I can't, I won't, and to see those doors open and to see that he's a waymaker and he's awesome and he loves us and he wants us to be the best version of us that we possibly can. And I just encourage everyone to be that, to do that, to live that. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of life. It's not. It's not something we do on the weekends. It's something you you live and breathe every moment of our life. But I just really thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this and to share my story, um, and just to know God is good.
Yes, he is.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is what I can say on behalf of Monee Alliance of Churches and Pastor Hunt and Mike, that we are going to continue the best that we can to continue to create these channels for us to listen and to hear each other, and so that we can do some of the things that you guys are talking about. So
Mhm.
don't be surprised if you see another segment like this to come out in the near future. And we want to thank everybody for watching today. So from all of us here, the Monee Elijah Churches, Pastor Hunt and trustee officer, Marine Corps veteran, Mike Wilson. I don't know how to end that one, but we appreciate you guys
Deacon.
for watching, and we hope that you can be a part of the conversation in the future as well. Let's do some good, and like has been said, let's make it a lifestyle and not a box that we check to make ourselves feel good. So have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Pastor Joe. Thanks, Mike. See
Thank
you
you,
guys.
Pastor Joe. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you.